welcome. Horrible job of welcoming as a task manager. So, roll call. Drew, you wanna start?
Drew Farmer, City Councilor, Coos Bay.
Sean Sweet, Coos County.
Nicole Rutherford, City of Coos Bay.
David Keels, Coos County.
And before we move around a little bit, I was just gonna say, I think we're still working. I'm assuming we don't have any North Bend representative online. So we're still kind of working through that. We're obviously missing a couple of those here, but
I did try to outreach the person that looked like they had gone through the North Bend process without a response, and we know that one person is not able to participate. So I did reach out to this North Bend, and they're going to start over.
okay, that's great, because it would be great if we have all voices to sit at this table, so. I don't know if we want to kind of do this, and then it'd be great if we can know who's online, because I cannot read mine, so.
So online we've got, actually, you wanna just popcorn?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so, let's start with Christine. If you wanna introduce yourself, where you're from, and then pick the next person.
Hi, I'm Christine. I'm from Adapt, and I'll choose Stephanie.
Greetings, Stephanie Kilmer, and I am the Coos Bay City Council, and I am the alternate for the city.
Let's go with Stephanie Hadley.
I was going to say, hi, Stephanie Hadley, Southern Oregon Coast Regional Housing Coordinator. Thank you for having me today.
How about Matt?
Hi, everyone. Matt Borderstraus, Executive Director, North Bend City Coos Curry Housing Authorities.
Okay, Kyle?
I'm Kyle Brown. I'm the Executive Director with Operation Rebuild Hope.
Jeremy?
Hi, I'm Jeremy Horton. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Operation Rebuild Hope.
Amanda?
Amanda McCarthy, Director of Social Determinants of Health at Advanced Health.
And we've got JP. Maybe? Muted still? Okay.
All right. And then I don't know, in the room here?
Okay, so move on to the room. My name is Ashley Porth. I'm the Administrative Coordinator for the Office of Homeless Response.
Eric Shermer, Project Manager, Office of Homeless Response.
Scott Cooper, Alternative Youth Activities.
Major Dave Coffin, Salvation Army.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. So that moves us to the second item on the agenda, which is the Homeless Response Office Financial Report. Either you want to take that, Ashley?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so I put together just a quick little summary for you guys to get a visual on our funding and where it's coming from, and also some of our expenses that we have encumbered. So first off is just our HRO revenue sources. So we've got four confirmed revenue sources that are contracted and one that we're applying for. And it has the amounts on there. It doesn't show the full amounts on our 4123 expenses. But I do have it broken out by category, and if you guys would like to take a deeper dive, but these are the four most, the four highest value categories for us. And we have one funded project out of 4123, and that's Hope Village with Salvation Army. Going to the next page is our EO 5019 funding. This is currently with AYA. We do have a couple of interested partners that are wanting to submit applications, don't have it yet, and they haven't been vetted, but we do have a couple on the horizon. And so far, and Scott will kind of go into his stuff a little deeper, but these are just some of the expenses that he's incurred so far that he will be submitting invoices for. And then the next page, if we can move on to number 3 or B, I think, I can't remember, on the agenda. Yeah, B. This is our explanation. So basically, I just kind of put together a quick, like, follow the money trail kind of document. So like how the office was started, what emergency orders connected to what funding sources, and how much money we got out of them and what buckets we have them parceled out into. And then I kind of have like what our requirements are for each of those funds, so that you guys can kind of, just a quick reference guide if you want to look back at it. And it'll be a living document as we add more funds and grants to the programs. We'll update the form, so you guys have an idea.
Great.
Very nice.
I would note how far we're like 2 years in, and the first time we're given some numbers at the
This is very
at
nice.
this meeting. So kudos to you for kind of getting that, wading through all of that and putting it down so we can kind of pick out a little bit easier. So appreciate that.
Yeah, one thing that I did not include on here, and I apologize about that, we have spent, I believe, and I'm just taking this out of my brain, so it could be, it's a very round number. I believe we have about 225,000 left in HB 4123. So.
Okay. Which is something we want to be mindful of as we kind of walk forward with, you know, these additional funding sources, that we make sure we're allocating some administrative expenses to keep this work that you guys are doing going. So appreciate that. Anybody have any questions?
Appreciate this very much.
Yeah, we thought it'd be good to kind of have something that we can kind of reference and go back off of. I mean, I can tell you personally, it's been confusing,
Telling me.
the different types of funds that come in and what they're required to do. And I do think too, you know, we made some decisions around funding out of 4123, which is sort of our operational money. And some of that money may be able to come out of other grants based on the work that's being done. So I really think we need to make sure the office is operationally funded so that it can do its work. And I think we have a path forward to moving with that, so.
Yes, the first step is always having data, so.
Yeah, and I'll try to have this infographic it'll be a standing agenda item.
Okay, great. With nothing further, we can move to the next item, which is number 3, project update. So we've got 2 there, AYA and Salvation Army. Scott, anyone?
Bring me up on screen.
Yes.
So, yeah, I've got some numbers too that I brought that are a little bit harder. Numbers, it's always nice when you've got some actual numbers. Remember that SPA started around first of the year, housing people, and Ori did not start until April 17. And terminology, I don't think anybody's figured out what we're gonna use because these names keep changing on us. I know with AYA, SPA was the first one, we got 1.9 million. Ori, we're calling the second one, which is 100, just under 100. So in a minute, I'm gonna show you what we actually spent, and then I'm gonna give you predictions based on now that we have numbers of where we're gonna go. I was a little bit shocked, I actually just crunched these numbers within the last hour. And it's amazing what you can do with spreadsheet. So this is the monthly update, and I'll try to keep this the same every month, so it keeps it very simple. 1 second.
Sorry, guys.
No, you're good.
So Scott, let me just, when you say SPA, the other way that we talk about that is
5519.
5019 or the EO emergency order,
Yes.
right? So those are all synonymous.
Yeah,
Am I correct?
EO 5019 is our standard
Alright.
going forward from our office.
I will stick with 5019 from here on in.
Thank you, because if you throw SPA, I'm like, where are we going?
Spa and Ori.
Right,
No.
but not at AYA.
No,
No, they call 5019 SPA.
I will
and
change
Ori
the names of my place because nobody knows what to call these things anymore.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
there's a big difference between what I'm hearing at the state level. 5519 is gonna go away. It was a one and done type of thing. And the other one that I have, which is a special population, has already started to move its way through legislation, and there's a possibility of it.
Yeah.
being significant.
Which is why I think the SPA, which is what Ori was for them. Oregon
Special.
Rehousing Initiative, that initiative piece kind of suggests they plan to do something with this.
As opposed to the other, which is emergency order, which was the one time to get it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, and that's one that we have a lot more money. So this is the big one. In fact, I just wrote a little bit earlier. I believe you have a meeting coming up with the state. You will have full access to look on HMIS to see what the state can see and I can see and you can see. And it's a little bit confusing here on 5519. Let me change that word.
I'll correct you even still
Yeah.
yet, 50.
5019. Okay.
We'll try it.
We're all trying to learn the same language.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
And we just started housing as many people as we could. We didn't
I know.
even decipher anything. 5019 has 11 households with a total of 30 clients. And it's gonna be interesting to see the way the state decides to look at that. Because I know the other one, give me number 5506.
Yes.
The other one, 5506, is about households and youth. So in that one, we have 7 households and 17 clients. As far as how they, I mean, because if you look at the first one, we're at 30 already. We were supposed to do 32. But are they, I think they're gonna be looking at individual lease contracts, which is only at 11. So, things are moving. Why don't you hit the next slide? Okay, what we spent and drop the order, 5506. Did I get it right that time?
25, 32.
Don't be messing with me. And I don't know how you feel about pie charts. It kind of shows you everything that was spent. We spent $27,000. A lot of it is the yellow, which is housing focused stuff. I have stockpiled like 25 mattresses right now. It's easier to buy things in bulk. I happen to have the place to storage, and we've just got a bunch of things we started doing. And then the rest is permanent rental, a little bit on conversions. Hit the next one. Here's the projections at the present rate. That one's gonna be $400,000 short. And we kind of knew this, if you think about it, the one has $1.9 million to house 32 people. The other one has under $1 million. It's almost half as much. And I want to thank everybody who got me back those letters of support so quickly. I've already started to try to backfill this, and we already know that the state is moving in that direction to backfill. And these are projections. You can't put a finger on it because you don't know exactly what the rents are gonna be. You don't know when people are gonna get the rent. You don't know what the rehab's gonna be on the place. These are just projections using the numbers I have. Next one. Now let's do the same thing for the other grant, and it looks like I put the wrong name in there. The bigger grant, the 1.9, we spent $157,000. That one is all over the place. And it's because what we did was we got what they refer to in the grant as medium-term housing. I still scratch my head what that medium-term housing means. And it's easy to kind of explain. Pallet shelter, very transitional. An actual house that you have your own bedroom and a lock on your bedroom, medium-term. Long-term, which is what this grant wants and requires, means that you have a lease in your name. So we immediately set up a medium-term house where we started to get people in, and now we've got those clienteles with a roof over their heads. And when they leave, we're gonna let them take their sheets, their mattresses, and a few other things with them to set up their new place. So we're slowly moving people out of the medium term into the long term. And that's one of the reasons that the orange is so high. And we did do some housing incentives with landlords and some block leases.
Can I ask, just check, so this medium housing, does that, I mean, the rehousing rules, don't they require normally a lease? I mean,
They have to have a lease.
so those won't qualify then as.
We do have 8 shelter beds in the contract.
So they would qualify under the shelter
They
area.
qualify under there, yes. And to me, I need to get them stabilized. We need to see if they're good to go. So once we have them stabilized, we can actually start the new apartments.
Maybe we should have a discussion just to internally at the point to make sure we're meeting, because I continue to be concerned that we are documenting our successes, and so figuring out. You know, it's kind of odd thinking about the boxes that we have to tick and submit back, but ultimately, you know, we are required to make sure we tick those boxes. So that's why I just want to be sure we are you know, we've had that discussion about what's gonna qualify as rehousing. And so in my mind, I thought what you're doing was under the rehousing. I didn't realize that some of it might not.
So just to clarify for,
I was gonna say the same thing.
okay, yeah, just to clarify, so Scott, when you're talking about the 8 shelter beds, you're talking about the ORI program, correct?
Where we're placing them is gonna be, yeah, but the ORI program will cover that, shelter beds as well.
Okay, yeah, because ORI had that same requirement.
Okay.
Both of them have the
Yeah.
8 shelter beds in them, and crunching the numbers, it came up a little bit higher than I expected.
And when they move from medium term to long term, that then checks a rehousing box.
It does.
Yeah.
And to be truthful with David, we originally kind of thought that because they had their own bedrooms, they had their own lease and whatnot. But then looking into it further, it's like, no, they need their own permanent housing, their own bathroom. So we're like, okay, this is just a temporary thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The projection out is we'll still have $41,000 left at the present rate. And that is really a moving number. And I know you're looking at me saying I projected out a lot less. This was just taking an algorithm and throwing it in there. If everybody got housing right now and it went smooth and we were paying rent month after month, it would depreciate it pretty quickly. We do not expect that I'm gonna get the other 25 people housed tomorrow, so I don't think that's gonna dwindle as much. But if
This is projection as if everything went without a hitch.
if everything happened tomorrow and it was all done, and all we were doing is keep paying rent, yes.
And the 11 and 30 includes the 8 shelter
It does,
number.
yeah. And that one, I think, so all mine in HMIS, I believe, nobody's really sure, but we believe it's gonna go right over to the homeless response team. They're gonna swoop it off there, and they're only gonna take the ones out that have those full-time leases. Their job is gonna be to check those leases, make sure everything's all right before you submit them. I think that's all I have. Oh, no. Did I do these backwards?
Yes, I think you did.
I think that's the end of it. I think this is just another one, and those are the actual.
Buckets.
Okay, those are just the buckets. Okay,
That's it. I'm done.
okay.
All the rest is just.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have questions? Nope. All right, Mr. Kaufman.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope your day's going well. Mine's wonderful. I've been on vacation for 2 weeks. You can't touch me. Needless to say, Hope Village is getting underway. I was just looking at the communication from our architect and a gentleman named Matt over at the water board. Apparently, we've got to upgrade our water service, and we're not sure yet if we have to upgrade the entire water service prior to our land use permit. The land use permit should be submitted August 29th. That's the target date we've set to get it over to the city planning office. So far, of the $480,000 allocated, we've spent $4,000 on architecture, and that's it so far. Other than that, there will be some expenses coming out of there pretty quickly. I'm thinking we have to do a site survey because we can't seem to find one from all the construction that's happened at our property. So we're gonna have to do a site survey. That's probably gonna be about 14,000. We did I'm sorry, there was one more expense. We did a water survey. We had an engineer come out. He was $8,000. And basically what we've got is when it rains, we have areas where water settles. So we've got to get that French drained out and moved off the property. But there's no springs or wells underneath our property, so there's going to be no big water challenges. Other than that, the architect is trying her best to keep the property green. She wants to keep the trees that are there, they exist. And the paths will weave in and around the trees, and then we've got to figure out a way to put dignity fencing around it. So all that to say, the $480,000 will result in 8 shelter style units for transitional, 2-year transitional, but I see that we might need to amend that at some point to make it 2 years, and then we'll renegotiate after that if people are struggling. Because the challenge isn't getting them into a house, it's finding a house for them to get into. So anyway, that's where Hope Village stands. I should have more for you next month after the land use is submitted. I understand that the process from land use then moves into neighborhood discussions, and that'll be a minimum of 40 days, and then the permit process will, we hope that moves swiftly. All of this to say, I hope to have some modular style housing units on our property by November, maybe December. That's pretty aggressive, but nothing that I see is stopping it, so hopefully we can get that going that quickly. And I have nothing more to share.
That's a good note to stop sharing.
Yeah.
It makes me very happy to hear that.
Are those, sorry, anyone else have questions before I go to the end? Okay, are those gonna be, and I know nothing about buildings, so I'm gonna say the wrong words, I'm just gonna have to figure it out. Like, they're modular or mobile or permanently there?
The idea is to make them mobile, and there's people on both sides in the Salvation Army and in the community that would like to see them mobile. For instance, if there was a plan maybe moving in the future where they needed to be placed somewhere else, they would be able to go. Basically, would leave a pad on our property, right? And the unit itself would go to that site. The Salvation Army likes that too, in that after, let's say we're 10 years down the road and maintenance starts becoming an issue, they've got the ability, they're mobile, so they're more able to, take them away or do something like that.
Now, that is a difference from what the original idea was, is that correct? That was not the original, if I remember.
We were talking stick build, and the proposal that I put forward, we were gonna do stick builds. They were still along the lines of a modular though, just like the ones down at the Big Point Landing. Yeah, we were looking at those. Those look mobile, but they're really stick builds on a, looks like a mobile home frame.
Like a platform.
Yeah, so that's what we were looking at, but my leadership and people in the community have said, we should think about more modular. I could still put them on, put the frame around the base so it looks permanent, but for all intents and purposes, be a modular unit that can be moved.
I don't think it matters. In my estimation, I think either is fine, honestly. So.
Just gives us flexibility
It does.
in this very fluid environment that we find ourselves in as we see the housing market maybe change.
Of course, some stuff is structured right, like obviously the utility connections all have to be sort of hard, they're wherever they end up being, right? So some of those things are.
Yeah.
It'd be more like a mobile home.
Yeah.
Kind of park area. You'd have the utilities coming up in one space, separated by whatever is required by the law. But it would be basically water and power, sewer, those are your three utilities.
Now, let me ask, so this, again, we meet once a month, so my brain's always sort of like slow to catch up, but. So, I know we gave you some of the 4123 money out of our bucket that we had. You got some money from the tribes as well, but that would change a little bit because of the timing.
Yeah, that actually the 23-24 money expired, so we went from approximately 1.2 million. We're now looking at 678,000.
Okay.
And I've got a call into and to see the status on that. The last communication we had was July 21st.
Okay.
I guess it's an OHCS contract now between the Salvation Army and OHCS and Cookwell Indian Housing Authority is kind of seen as more the local landlord kind of person that would be a part of, but they're not necessarily, they've kind of removed themselves from the equation.
I just think that, just to share with you, what comes through our mind a lot of times is we have the deadlines where we have to get the money in place too. So, when you say November, it makes me feel comfortable because that allows us to meet our deadlines. And if it got to be late, then it creates problems for us as well, trying to demonstrate that we're doing what we need to, so.
And appreciate this update, because Friday we do have an opportunity to talk directly with the OHCS about where we're at. So timing couldn't be better.
Yes.
It will be new to my brain and hopefully retrievable pretty quick now, so appreciate that.
And right, they OHS wants to know where's your plan for the money going out to the community for you, so it's perfect timing it is,
I can type you up something too and send it over. That'd help.
Yeah, if you have some timelines or anything like that. I'm of the opinion if we give them a lot of information, they might be impressed and let us sit for just a moment.
Plus, we have additional asks as a community too, so we're also trying to make sure that. You know,
We're worthy of what we're asking for, We'll appreciate you helping us meet these goals. Thank you. All right, if there's nothing further on that, we'll move to item 4, which is a project proposal from Matt Borderstrass.
Hey, everyone. So to start off, the reason why the Housing Authority is here is so as the office has been reorganizing, we also have received a capacity building grant from the state of Oregon. And so what we're doing is we're providing technical assistance to shelter and housing sites, as well as the Office of Homeless Response around some of the planning around the reorganizing around these things. And so as everybody's preparing for the meeting with OHCS on Friday, plus trying to figure out how to deliver on the deliverables that the office currently needs to adhere to and make happen, we're also helping draft the Housing 360 proposal, which is currently out there with OHCS that the Office of Homeless Response is going for. And so the Housing Authority is here selfishly because I don't need funding from you guys. We are doing housing developments, and so what we need is a functional shelter system. And so we're here as myself and Stephanie are here as the South Coast Resource Development Team to help with some of the planning around these things to make sure that things are in alignment. And so the Housing 360 proposal, we've been meeting on a weekly basis, talking about this proposal as well as the other plans and drafting this to try to make it align with the pivots that the office is currently doing. And so the Housing 360 funds is an interesting fund. Basically, it is the state has identified the importance of not only addressing homeless services, but also focusing on behavioral health supports that can be embedded within those systems. And as I read through the RFP, it was kind of a light bulb went off. At my last job over in Jackson County, we would get a lot of communities coming over wanting to tour facilities. And one of the things they would always ask is, what makes this work? And what we would always tell them is that the shelter and housing is just the tool that we use to meet people where they're at. It's truly the supportive services and the wraparound supports that we wrap around people to address the behaviors that brought them to us in the first place. And so, and address those barriers so that we can move people forward. And so I'm saying that to basically state that this proposal is kind of an indicator that the state is now catching on to what the secret sauce of homeless services programs really is, and that is the supportive services that you provide. And then we can go to the next slide. All right, so so currently with the proposal that we're putting together, we have pretty much the entire thing drafted, minus needing to finish out the budget. But the proposal would really aim to support the Office of Homeless Response in the direction that it's moving to with the change of the fiscal agents and everything. And what this would do is it would pull partners like Coos Health and Wellness, Bay Area First Step, and Adapt and those types of providers closer to the work that we're doing so that we could do really kind of those main bullet points there. Develop integrated service delivery by not only standing up shelter sites, but also working with providers like, let's say, AYA, to make sure that they have access to the behavioral health supports that would be best suited to help the people that they're serving. So we'll have an integrated service delivery, equity improvement plan. Part of this proposal would also be developing a partnership with South Coast Health Equity Coalition to help facilitate feedback loops, but also talking to the community in some cases and facilitating those types of listening sessions. Within this, there's also a number of regional strategies that we're going to call out and put into the application. Collaboration and partnership, creating pathways to permanent and supportive housing, which is a huge one that we'll also call out in the application. staff training and cultural competence, which is another one where South Coast Health Equity comes into play, advocacy and community building, and sustainability planning. And so that's kind of what we've drafted this proposal up to this point to really do, is to support the office in its current state, but also support them in the work of going out and working like with what Eric is doing with working with other communities to try to identify potential sites. It's to support those types of efforts, to actually mobilize the office to be able to physically even stand things up that could be operated in the community. So the idea with this would be to strengthen the office, but also strengthen the partnerships more. And then, so then we can go to the next slide. Let's see. I think you jumped over one.
Nope, that's the next one, Matt.
Nope. All right, my stuff's, it's okay. So my stuff's just a little bit out of alignment, so I'll jump over to that one. So yes, so part of the proposal with Housing 360 is also equity improvement plan. This is actually directly one of the initiatives that they call out that they want to see every proposal in every region address. And so what we're doing is we've talked with South Coast Health Equity Coalition because we recently with the Housing Authority just went through a similar partnership with them where they actually generated community impact report around the North Bend family housing site that we're developing. And so what we talked with South Coast Health Equity about is being able to develop an MOU and a partnership with them to where they can be, as needed, be able to do those same types of groups with their facilitations within our community. That way, we're really making sure that we're talking to every fragment or every portion of the community, and then also going as far as even developing affirmative marketing plans so that we can make sure that when sites are stood up and services are created, that they are truly made available to everybody. And that we have the marketing and the messaging and the bandwidth to be able to get those resources out into the community. And so with that, there will be advocacy and outreach, community building and engagement, feedback and advisory mechanisms, as well as helping us develop staff training and cultural competency around like cultural humility and those things, which is another thing that we're having them do with our training for the Housing Authority staff, as well as we move in this direction to become a more trauma-informed organization ourselves. And we can go to the next slide. Some of the regional strategies that we're going to be employing. So best practices, when we get into those, that is things like case management, in integrating behavioral health support into sites, really developing those wraparound supports, really kind of enhancing the office to provide more technical assistance support around things like developing policy, identifying staff training, helping with job description, everything that's going to be involved with helping stand up a program, we want the Office of Homeless Response to be equipped to do. Developing sustainable revenue. I know that's one of the things that at a statewide level, we're trying to wrap our heads around is when we build these shelter systems, how do we develop them in a way that makes them sustainable so that we're not constantly coming back year in and year out trying to get the same renewable grant or same grants. And so developing sustainable revenue such as maybe having some of those conversations of you're going to be having peer support or things like that. Maybe we can help have a conversation with the CCO and see if there might be a way to braid those types of funding sources. So it would be a way of helping move the office in a direction to really help lead the charge with helping programs develop sustainable revenue streams to make sure that they are in the community for long term. All right, then we can go to the next slide. Collaboration and partnerships. I obviously one of the things that we mentioned was Coos Health and Wellness, and Bay Area First Step and Adapt and organizations like that would be natural partners in this. One of the other ones that we're talking about is with North Bend Family Housing and the Housing Authority. We are developing that site, and we're going to have 20 set aside PSH units. Those PSH units are going to be supported by Coos Health and Wellness as they embed staff at our site. But we're still going to need to develop that partnership. And so this type of grant would also allow the Office of Homeless Response to have the staff time and bandwidth and ability to focus on making sure that we have a clear pathway from the Coos Health and Wellness services and the shelter beds that people would be pulled from for the PSH units at North Bend Family Housing, and then making sure that that system and that partnership is flowing appropriately into those permanent housing. And so as we're able to get Housing 360 funds and really focus on integrating behavioral health care into these sites, this will also allow the Office of Homeless Response staff the ability to really focus on making sure that we have a fully functional continuum of supportive services from shelter beds all the way to permanent housing. And obviously, putting North Bend Family Housing there as a goal is obtainable because we're also currently working with the state of Oregon to be able to build that site and develop that site. And so we're working towards a construction closing, and we'll start building those units in early 2025. And so we know that those PSH units are coming on board. And so it made sense for us to showcase that as an example of the activities that the staff would be engaged in through these Housing 360 funds to help integrate these services into sites, but also make sure that we are developing systems that are not siloed and are fully integrated and working together. All right, and then go to the next slide. All right, and then obviously the expected outcomes and evaluation would be enhanced housing retention, improved health outcomes, increased cultural competence, and stronger partnerships between organizations. In reality, I think if we were to be able to get funding like this and really work to embed these types of services at sites and develop these types of MOUs and partnerships with all of our providers, we would be developing an entire integrated community with shelter and housing and behavioral health care supports all being rolled into one. And I think that would just be an amazing system to be able to have the Office of Homeless Response be able to build for Coos County. And so that's kind of what we've been drafting on this end to help the Office of Homeless Response. Again, as the housing authority, we're really just here to provide technical support with drafting this, but then also trying to make sure that these partnerships make sense for the overall system that our community is trying to build. And so that being said, I think that's, I might have one more slide. Yep. And so all this being said, we truly do invite the stakeholders to support this as we move forward with it. And so I'll just kind of leave it at that. Yeah, it's kind of odd presenting on a report that really has nothing to do with my day job, but I'm here to support you guys. And so I'll now leave it to you guys to ask questions or converse or anything that you like.
Thank you. Do we already have any questions?
What is this? Can you tell me can you talk a little bit about the timeframes on this, Matt, and also what specifically do you need from us as a group? Or you do need things?
So I don't think I need anything right at this specific moment. I know at the last meeting when we spoke about it, we talked with Nicole if she could maybe take a lead on helping draft the budget to finish up their proposal. I'm not sure if the board needs to vote to give the Office of Homeless Response permission to submit the grant proposal. I wasn't aware if we needed to or not. But my thought would be is, David, with you with Coos Health and Wellness, I think maybe if we're just able to get a letter of support from you guys, even that Coos Health and Wellness is willing to engage in this level of partnership with the Office of Homeless Response to make sure that services are being offered and available at every single level of shelter and housing. I think that might be something that would be really meaningful, that would really give weight to this proposal with OHCS, especially also leading into the Friday meeting.
So my understanding is this is due like September 16th, 17th.
I thought it was the 14th, but it's around there.
Okay. And we don't really have procedures, bylaws, expectation, all the things. So knowing whether or not the office needs to get permission to apply for grants, and how the county operates, versus how the city operates, all of those things. So I think it was our opportunity to bring it in front of the board to get support. We've got a lot of housing dollars in the accessible for us, but we don't have these dollars that help add the important piece. We have the tools, like Matt said, the housing is the tool to get the connection. We need those wraparound services, and that's where this Housing 360 kind of comes into play. So it is the missing piece for what's happening here. I mean, I think we should stand behind this pretty darn strong, so we can be successful in incorporating 5019 and 5506 in this community, so.
I guess the question, so if in this scenario, I mean, I don't know either whether we need to move in some kind of formal way or give some kind of nod to go ahead, but if we're successful, where would the funding come through, or does the city as the fiscal intermediary then? So is that,
I think we do have to make kind of those decisions. I mean, either this board or the city or the county, you know, necessarily would need to decide if they were gonna be that agent, that fiscal agent piece. As it stands now, it does look like, you know, the city of Coos Bay is kind of becoming that piece, because I think the $4123 are, you know, gonna end up dwindling down, so. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. It may be tomorrow, you know, the homeless response office becomes its own fiscal agent
Right.
at some point, but for now, that seems the logical path. So I don't, you know, if we're comfortable, formal, you know, vote on this, motion and vote, we certainly could do that. I don't, again, we don't have guidelines that are telling us by which, you know, so. I guess if there was some, feedback contrary to supportive, maybe that's the better tactic, but. Matt?
You know, I do think it is helpful when we're able to show that the board is in support of something. I mean, that's the same whether it's a nonprofit or a city or anything. And so I think if we were to get a board vote just giving the blessing to draft the proposal and submit it to OHCS, I think that would be good.
Okay, so is there someone willing to make that motion?
There's a lot of moving parts here, but I'll tell me again, Matt, what the motion is. I have to tell you, I'm still struggling. I know I met with the two of you. You use a lot of words. We talk about a lot of different organizations. We're talking about different offices. We're talking about grading. We're talking about all this and all that. I'm kind of in a state of bewilderment.
Yeah,
frankly. And
no, that's understandable. So
so many different parts, you know, I'm pretty linear or something like that, and you aren't. And we're having a hard time communicating.
I would say, John, and that maybe I'll try to summarize how I envision it, and Matt can let me know if I'm off or not, but I think what the endeavor really is to look at capturing some funds to really, you know, not necessarily around the housing, but we know that housing for some of these folks isn't gonna be successful unless we have the mental health supports, the alcohol and drug supports, and those things.
That part I see.
So I think it's really about trying to get the funding, looking at funding proposals to bring some dollars here where we can really develop this core of services that then can be available throughout any area of the community that's serving this population wherever it's needed.
Like
so
a
that
one-stop shop.
Yeah, so they can go to the mission and do that, or they can go to Coal Bank, or they can go to the street corner that's there and really, you know, provide that level of support wherever it's needed. So we don't really currently have that, right? We have it siloed here, like, oh, this organization has this relationship over here, but that's all it is, and they don't have it over here. So I think the idea is, you know, are we okay with having our office explore ability to bring some funding in to help really create this system of services that really can be available across the board whenever it's needed for whoever.
I get that part,
So-
yes.
So to me, I think what my take would be is if we feel comfortable that we do that would be my motion, is that we do go ahead and support the office, taking the steps to go ahead and develop and submit a proposal for funding related to this funding opportunity. So at least that's, I don't know.
So what we're really authorizing is receiving a proposal.
Correct.
And I'm very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Isn't
So-
the a pretty competitive grant,
Yep.
so, they're only giving out 4.
For, yeah. So we need to have our sort of act together if we have any chance of capturing the funds. So I think having, some agreement by us as the advisory board that we're all on board, I think it is important.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of where the grant people are gonna evaluate us. If there's dissension, we could be marked off the list right off the bat, basically.
I like it.
I made a motion.
You made a motion, I make a
That was
second.
beautifully put.
Okay, so having a motion and a second on the floor, my next thing.
All in favor?
Discussion.
There's discussion,
Discussion.
right?
Oh,
Any
yeah.
discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. So you guys can move forward. It sounds like I owe you some work. Budget numbers. Thank you, Matt, for
All right,
sharing
thanks, guys. I'm gonna drop.
that that
Thank you,
information.
guys.
Okay, so that moves us to item number 5, which is a project proposal. I believe Eric is gonna present that.
I am, thank you. So I have been working with the Devereaux Center. The Devereaux Center is becoming very motivated to work to repair its relationship with the surrounding community. One of the things that has been strongly suggested over time is the building of a fence across the front of the property such that it can be blocked off when they are no longer offering services. The Devereaux Center received a letter from the city, which is one of the attachments that comes next. If you just scan down to number 1 on the list is explore fencing and or security. They were able to do that very quickly because they had a previous bid about building a fence out front, which we just had updated. And their board held a special board meeting Monday night and approved moving forward with building a cedar fence. They opted for cedar because it follows the city guidelines and doesn't have to be a temporary fence. They're concerned about having to rebuild a fence after 4 years went by and pay for it twice. So the next page is the one bid I have currently from West Coast Fencing. There's actually 2 bids in there, one for chain link, one for cedar, but we'll be looking at the one for cedar. Its total price is $33,735.24. I did call other agencies and actually finally heard back from one this morning. They are gonna bid the build within 2 days and get me some documentation, but I don't have that for this meeting. I'm hoping that we can move forward with an approval with 1 bid, and by the time I get to the county, I will have 2 or 3. Okay, so if we could treat $33,000 as sort of the ballpark of funding, and the real request I have is following the same clause of the 4123 grant that we funded the Salvation Army with, can we support homeless services by spending the money for the fence at the front of the Devereaux Center out of 4123.
Any questions?
So this fence would be, do I think it would just be along the front of the property?
Yes, both neighboring properties have chain link fence, so the sides are already fenced and there is already a chain link fence across the back. So the only truly easy access is in and out through the front.
And then there would be a fence and possibly, I think there's an entrance and an exit, so there would then be
2 motorized gates to allow vehicles through that would sit open during business hours and be closed during non-business hours that are still accessible to services, police, fire, garbage, et cetera.
So, but then the Devereaux Center plan, if this was in place, is it would be closed in non-operational hours, weekends, things that where they were not otherwise operating?
Anytime outside of published business hours, absolutely, yes.
Would be,
We have not discussed warming shelter, so we would have to work on that.
Suppose they would include their operating hours during those times.
Right, that would probably be operational, and they would have staff on site during those hours.
that makes sense.
I believe we would also need to monitor to make sure folks are on site. I was at their board meeting and they did have some dissension over whether or not to still let some people stay if they're catching a ride or something the next morning.
Oh,
So it'd be worth monitoring to see how closely they adhere to all the criteria, but obviously they do need a fence.
They're also talking about putting in security cameras, monitor the parking lot, and, so that's there as well.
so this would help, and maybe just do this would help some in that community feel safer about operations there and feel like there was more containment. Is that the sense from some of the city residents? I don't want to
I
say.
think that's a piece of it. You know, I think their rules that are kind of published for public viewing indicate that they're closed and they're not allowed to be on site.
Right.
And so that's contrary to what happens on a regular basis. Because there is nobody there to, you know, their staff there in those odd hours, you know, the behaviors are maybe contrary to what is community approved, so.
I mean, I can tell you in my own building, we don't have a fence and Lord knows what goes, well, it's not, Lord knows, we know what goes on.
Yeah.
We see the remnants when we get to work. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
there's somebody did that over there. So you're right. I mean, a fence would provide at least some, not perfect, because unless you're gonna have a fire, with barbed wire and a turret or something, and people are still gonna get over it. So, but I can see that at least it would provide some barrier to just having people.
When I was at work and I would stay late, I would hear what happens in your parking lot too.
And we have cameras and everything too, so that's great. You can see the next morning. It's perfect,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
but
it doesn't necessarily help all the time.
Yeah.
So. Councilor Kilmer, you have a question?
Yes, is this something that the Devereaux Center came to the homeless response group with, or was this something that the homeless response group came up with?
You know, I've been working with the Devereaux Center a lot on different projects, and so I cannot,
Is this a chicken and an egg question?
yeah, I honestly, I can't say for sure. We've been talking about fencing there for quite a while.
Okay, I know that it has come up from the city's perspective on numerous occasions, and they have not been willing to do that for a variety of reasons, and a lot of pushback. Some alternatives were given, and I am an Empire resident, and I am still not clear on what their hours are, and it is concerning to me as a counselor when I hear you say that there's still some discussion about housing on site or things like that. And I don't know, I guess, you know, I'm just an alternate with an outside perspective, but I think I would want to have something more solid before I took this anywhere to a vote.
Would say that I felt at the meeting, the board was clear on their expectations. And at the end of the day, the board is in charge of those aspects. The chain link fence bid they mentioned at the meeting, they had one left over from a year ago when they examined this. Their primary complaint when they were having their meeting was that they'd been anticipating a move, and that's why they didn't make the investment in the fence, is because they didn't see blowing a couple tens of thousands of dollars when they were about to move. Now that's likely, so they're a little more comfortable.
Okay, so was this recent that you felt more comfortable, Drew? Because the conversation that I was involved in was within the last week to week and a half.
I was at their board meeting Monday night, and I would say the temperature of the board was that it's better to start to get along better than it would be to engage in conflict. Because at the end of the day, something had come up and I mentioned if a person wanted to, of course, they could fight something. It's just a question of how much they want to spend on legal fees instead of their clients. And I think that was received.
I mean, you know, to me, as a board member, it seems fairly, if we have money available to spend to help assist this kind of effort. If this helps at all, the community in that area and, you know, helps sort of, sometimes fences are good things. I have neighbors and I appreciate the fences I have with them. Cedar fences are really nice sometimes because you can have a little bit more security than a chain link. But I just think, to me, it's a bit of an easy call personally, just because, you know, if it helps create some solution. And again, it's not going to be perfect. I think I appreciate what you were saying, Stephanie, too. It's not going to be perfect, and it really, you know, it still doesn't clear up everything, right? But I think it certainly, I think, is a step that could be helpful.
I'm comfortable enough with it.
Yeah. Major Kaufman, you had your hand up.
I just have a question for you guys, that's none of my business. Just the vulnerability to your group by paying for a fence from taxpayer dollars, because I'm a part of that Coos neighborhood watch. I'm on several of these. Oh my gosh, it doesn't matter what happens over there, there's always somebody that had 50 people behind them that's saying terrible things. So is there a way maybe that you could, for instance, creatively send some money and it's used for something and that would offset money that they could use to buy their own fence? That's just what I was thinking.
I mean, do we think there's a difference?
Scott,
Really?
have some info.
I don't have info, I just have that, and I hate to counter you. But it's gonna show those people that you're actually getting involved in cleaning up on some of those things that need to be cleaned up. I don't think it's gonna have a negative effect of, because now you're getting involved with let's do something about this. So I think some of the people you're gonna do nothing right for it. Can't change the mind anyways, right?
Yeah, to me, it's a little bit, I mean, I completely hear what you're saying, and I know that you're right. And there is no pleasing everybody around this, and yes, any dollar spent in that area is just not the thing. But those are the same people that are complaining oftentimes about the situation as well, so do you just bite the bullet, say, yeah, all right, well, you were complaining, we heard you, these are the steps we're taking, you're not happy with that either? Okay, but you weren't happy before either, so, you know, I just don't think, you know, I would prefer not to alter my perception just based on those individuals just by themselves, because they're not gonna, I have not found anything that they're gonna be happy with unless all efforts cease. Which is basically counter to our office in the first place, right? When we signed on an entity, it was to try to do something. So, you know, I'm gonna continue to try to do something because that's what we all signed up to do together. And so, yeah, but I also would be prepared very much for the, yeah, I mean, it's been that way every step of the process, right? So. Another hand.
Yeah, Kyle.
All right, I just had a question. So how tall are you thinking for the fence?
6 feet?
That would be a regulatory issue with it, not a goal.
Yeah, I do think there are some height requirements.
There are, because
Have those
Well,
conversations.
yeah, my question was gonna be, because unless you go as high as you can to make a privacy fence, well, I mean, even really then, I'm not sure how building, and I'm not disagreeing building the fence out front. I think it's a good idea as well. What I'm disagreeing with is going where the money would be coming from. I'm curious how exactly it would benefit services provided there by building a fence out front. The
So-
fence is. Go ahead,
Sorry, go
sorry.
ahead. No, you're good, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good, go for it. I was done talking.
So I think really the ask is because there is concern, in a trend where the advisory board had and not the city had at this point, but what's before us is a concern that's been placed on the Devereaux Center's operation from the city's perspective, that if something doesn't change there, that would positively impact the community that surrounds, you know, the Devereaux Center, they may find it difficult to operate in the city of Coos Bay. And so from that perspective, there is a connection to services. And then I would say for this board, like, there are folks on this board who are challenged with wearing an advisory hat versus a city hat. And so in my opinion, at least, this decision is based on whether or not we want to fund the fence, not whether or not it meets the concerns that the city addressed. The city still has a responsibility to make those decisions and enforce those decisions, and those are different hats. So I don't know if that's understandable.
No, yeah, I got it. I was just asking in reference to, because when it was proposed just now, it was said that by building a fence that it was going to help better the services themselves. But so I was kind of confused on what it'll even actually better outside of just privacy, because really building the fence isn't going to better any actual services. It's just going to provide privacy. So I was saying, I don't think this board necessarily funding it would have been appropriate.
I think where it's at right now, driving by it, being in it recently, they need a fence either way, because right now they've got a bunch of windows busted out. I'm not sure if they caught whoever did it. And then just last week, somebody unscrewed the board that was put over the window and broke in again. But I think a big part of it too was just getting the fence so that the community around it and for the development potential of Empire be addressed. And I think that's the history of it, but more recently, I'm inclined to think they need it for security purposes too, because that building's getting messed with and people are growing more and more aggressive towards their clients. So from a perimeter protection standpoint, they may need it at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if I misspoke, but I don't think that a fence is gonna improve or change the services there at all, so I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a difficult connection, for sure, I agree.
It may allow them to continue.
It just gives them a pathway to maintaining the ability to operate at that site. It is one piece of the puzzle, we'll just say that. There are some other challenges for sure, but it's one piece of the puzzle.
It's $100 for each board.
You're a quick math, sir.
It's actually not, you know, and I know this, it's actually the boards, it's the gate. Right, it's the gate, that's the primary, and having two gates, and having the movable gets to be costly, and so having had just a recent estimate on some own fencing of mine.
You can take the mechanical parts with you when you leave though, so that's good.
Okay, so I guess we have a proposal before us. If there is interest, we would need a motion.
I'll move to approve the proposal for gating, or, not gating, for fencing the front of the Devereaux Center. See your boards.
Second.
Submit in an amount not to exceed. I'm assuming we're gonna continue to get.
Yes, I'll have a new bid in one more bid in a couple of days, and hopefully 3 before.
In an amount not to exceed. Where is it?
Where's it?
$33,735.24. I'm an old farmer. I'm having a hell of a time making this. Also subject to the provision that we will get additional bids. So it's an amount not to exceed.
The current bid.
Provided that we have, and provided that we must have other bids.
Yeah, we need to follow the
he's.
The county rules
Yeah,
around.
at least 3.
For recruiting bids.
Getting
You just can't
responses-
get them, you just can't get them, but.
Right, but getting responses, I was very happy to hear from Scott this morning, this Scott, Range Construction Scott, so. He's gonna be measuring the place possibly this afternoon, but couldn't get me anything back to be here today.
Hmm.
So we have first and second, any further discussion?
You get a second?
No, I gave a second
Oh.
prematurely.
Alright.
I give another second. Seconds.
Hearing, no discussion, all those in favor,
Aye.
all those opposed? Motion passes. That moves us to item number 6, which is the response office, the homeless response office updates. Eric's gonna share the information we've learned about HIPAA compliance concerns.
So, an issue that came up in the past when working with our partner organizations was that we are not covered under HIPAA privacy laws. And Matt Mordorf was able to procure for us a HIPAA compliant partner agreement form. So going forward, whenever we're doing community outreach, working with our community partners, we will be having someone there sign these, and we'll sign them so that we are then compliant with privacy protections for our clientele. I don't think that needs to be a motion or anything.
No.
Yeah,
Okay,
very happy about it though.
yeah. All right, that moves us into item number 7, public comments.
Non-public comment.
No, we
How
don't.
are we coming on getting money so we can pay our bills?
Friday will hopefully give us those answers.
Oh,
Yeah. We meet with Mike Savara and Liz Fern and Emily, I don't remember her last name, Edwards on Friday. Give an update, and they are supposed to let me know where they are at getting the fiscal agent changed.
and those people work where?
OHCS,
Oh, okay.
should tell you that key point, huh? Yeah, yeah. David?
I heard back from Ann Cook. Could you put in a word about the contract between OHCS and Salvation Army? Apparently, we're waiting on them.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
John, any comments before you leave? It's board comment time.
Yep, we're right on time.
I'm 1 minute down. Both sending and receiving. Thank you all.
All right, no public comments, so we'll move to item 8, which is advisory board comments. Drew, do you want to start?
I got nothing.
I think I said my pieces, so.
Okay, so I was gonna just make one comment in regards to our packet. What do we do, like, so for the city, we have an agenda and the packet, so the public sees what we're seeing.
I am posting okay, so I had started posting the full packet online. I moved away from that because it seemed like I wasn't supposed to be doing that.
Okay,
But I can post both, and as far as like retention and stuff goes, also I save all of the sign-in sheets and public comments in a digital file and a physical file.
okay, yeah, it's helpful, I mean, Stephanie didn't have access to the same details that we were looking at, so as an alternate, unless you're here in this space, you don't get the packet.
Right, and I was running behind today, and so
Yeah,
I
no
didn't
worries.
send them out.
Just asking about what process looks like, so.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else other than that. I appreciate the work with the Devereaux to get this forward. You know, there's still the hurdle going before the county, got the additional bids we've got to work on, so work done here, but still some work to do there, so. Anything else, I guess?
One thing just to keep us in mind, you know, Nicole and I have been meeting sort of as the executive group with the team regularly. One thing we're encountering is the problem with the lack of real formalized bylaws. Maybe we can put on our to-do list is to to look at drafting some bylaws. Maybe we could sort of borrow a standard set from a group and then sort of look at what we could adopt, but we should have something.
Yeah,
Really good
about
idea.
Really
operations. Yes.
Because another piece that we're a little bit uncertain is there's some office kind of expenses, like who has authority to
Mm.
spend the money and how much and all those
Yeah.
things, so.
Well,
Yeah.
and do you guys have term limits? Do you have your
Yeah.
chairperson?
Will I always
Stuff
sit
like
in the
that,
seat
so.
and manage these meetings?
Yes.
No matter how poorly I do it?
Yeah, there's no exits. Hotel California, right?
Yeah.
Would you like us to contact other pilots and see if they have bylaws?
That'd be a good first step, yeah.
Yeah.
And you gotta remind me of the COC, I would start there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Deal advanced health bylaws,
Sorry?
snag advanced health bylaws, or no, I'm sorry, that's the CCO.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Acronyms.
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm sure the Rock has. something.
yeah, right, that was the one.
All right,
Still works.
well, thank you everyone for being here today and sharing all the great information. We'll adjourn,
Right?
okay?
We need to get you a gavel down here.
Nah.